Hello, everyone. Welcome to our episode on the finale of Star Trek Lower Decks, as well as just another day in the office for Star Trek Filmation. I am Bob in Cascadia. That is Matt in the Southland. We are here, part of Uncanny Treks, doing Season 4 of Star Trek Lower Decks versus Season 1 of Filmation Star Trek. Tonight we are talking about Old Friends, New Planets, the Lower Decks Season 4 finale, originally aired on the 2nd of November of this year, and we are putting it up against Episode 10 of Filmation Star Trek, Mud's Passion, originally aired 50 years prior on the 10th of November, 1973. Matt, how the hell are you doing tonight?
Doing pretty well, Bob. I just got to say, Lower Decks, I enjoyed this episode, okay?
Yeah.
But I'm still feeling like it's starting to go a little downhill. And
we'll talk about that too, because for our listeners, we'll do a special Season 4 recap episode as well. So we'll talk about it in a little bit more comparative perspective, as we say. But Matt, do you want to walk us through the plot of Old Friends, New Planets, which may or may not be going downhill even as we enjoy it?
Sure. And Bob, you did put a fantastic summary here, but I did add a separate summary of my own that I felt was more fitting. So,
do you want to read yours or do you want to read mine?
I'll tell you what, I can read both, Bob. The Mariner's traumatic past, Tendy's Orion past, Rutherford's rivalry with Livick, Freeman's hate of the Mark Twain holodeck program, and missing ships plot lines of all Season 4 comes to fruition.
Yes. And then in Matt's summary, Tom Paris as Tulpa fails at creating the Maquis 2.0.
Bam.
So, Matt, at the beginning when we had the recap segment, did you get nostalgic with that line and now the conclusion?
I did, but I would have been more nostalgic for the female voiceover. That's the one I remember the most. And I think is it Chapel doing the voiceover?
Yeah. Why? Okay. And why is it Chapel?
I don't know why.
What else?
Because she's the voice of the computer. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Majel Barrett.
Exactly right. Yeah, I was actually going to give you crap for just calling it the female voiceover. No,
I knew who it was. I just wanted to make sure. Yeah, I'm so nostalgic for that. Like I even heard that when the thing was saying it. Like that's how great. That's how iconic her voice is.
Yeah, especially after with Next Gen, you only got it a couple times per season, but with DS9, it felt like you got it many times.
Yeah, and forgive me if I'm wrong, but I think it was Riker in TNG.
Oh, I thought she did it in TNG too, but now you're making me doubt myself.
Yeah, I heard the male voice I have heard before. I've heard Majel Barrett's way more.
Interesting.
And I probably could have done my research and gone and looked it up, but I'm pretty sure
she definitely did it for DS9 and Voyager, right?
Right. Yeah, for sure. I know she did in DS9.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Fair enough. So speaking of nostalgia, Matt, I have to say, if you're going to bring Wes Crusher back, bringing him back as a nerd in a flashback is vastly superior to him coming back as Doctor Who, but even more godlike.
Well, I agree, and I didn't recognize the other members of Nova, that Nova Squad. I know there's 5 of them, and the animation for Wesley. He didn't really look himself,
which is fine. He doesn't look himself.
I mean, he's relatively bland anyway, but it's just like I would have been able to pick him out if they would have told me it was Wesley. But you also had.
No, I agree with that.
Yeah. You also had Cito there, I believe.
Yeah.
And right? And how do you say her name?
Yeah. Cito Jaxa, I think.
Cito Jaxa, and then you had the Tom Paris Tulpa, Nick Locarno.
Yes.
And then there's
Which
two
is
other ones.
ironic because he's the original. The Tulpa's the original, not vice versa. But I take your point.
So are you saying, what if Tom Paris is actually the Tulpa?
Yeah. Actually, Paris is the good Locarno Tulpa.
And damn, this is like what if Locarno and we need to do this epic thing where Locarno and Tom Paris have this Tulpa issue, but because Tom Paris got sent to the other side of the universe in the Delta Quadrant, Locarno was never actually able to get back into the Red Room and do what he needs to do.
Yeah, the connection got severed. We could also start in the tradition of Twin Peaks where people were referring to the evil Cooper Tulpa as Dirty Coop. We could refer to Locarno as Dirty Paris. That would be fun.
Well, we could, but then is Tom Paris the actual Dirty Coop? Or is he more of the Dougie?
He's more the Dougie, clearly. I mean, that's he has the same plot line with B'Elanna Torres that Dirty Coop has, that Dougie has with Naomi Watts.
Oh yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
And Locarno also has this thing for when he kidnaps Mariner. Maybe that's a part of it too.
Yeah. And we didn't see it, but he actually melts into the deck before the bomb goes off, just like Dirty Coop.
Garmin Bozia. Guys, if you haven't watched Twin Peaks, you don't understand any of these references, just go watch Twin Peaks, please.
Yeah. I mean, much as I love Star Trek, Twin Peaks is better.
Yeah. I would live in the, well, okay, if you had to choose, Bob, would you rather live in a world like Twin Peaks, or would you rather live in a world like Star Trek?
I would rather go with the theory that because there's so many crossovers in character actors between Next Gen and Twin Peaks, and because of that one original series episode where Scotty is possessed by Bob, I would rather just go with the theory that they're in the same universe.
Oh, okay. I like that. That's actually
also
pretty...
apparently there's some comic that X-Files like prequel comic out this week that like clickbait websites for claiming prove that Twin Peaks and X-Files are in the same universe.
Yeah. I mean, you've got David Duchovny's character though.
Yeah, but there can be multiple David Duchovnys, just as there are multiple Kyle MacLachlans.
Yeah, like a David Duchovny Tulpa.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Denise is the original, and Fox is the Tulpa.
There you go. Well, we need to write this shit, Bob. We could make some money.
So back to the original Locarno, apparently. Not the Tulpa, but the original. He hates wood panels and carpets, Matt. And for Mariner, this is a big red flag. Do you agree with that assessment?
Yeah, Bob. What that means is that you hate the ~70s for most people. For people who lived in our state, Georgia.
Yes.
You were living. It was the '80s.
Yeah, it was.
And if you live in Alabama,
even into the early '90s.
Oh yes, and if you lived in Alabama, it's the early aughts. Yeah,
Alabama
and I'm not kidding, folks. I know that sounds like one of those like, you're from Alabama. No, it's not one of those things. That's how it really is. And I've had to accept that I live behind the times.
Yeah.
Bob over in Seattle probably is. I mean, even though he's using a flip phone, he's probably like light years ahead over there socially. Maybe.
Time moves differently in Alabama, but both you and I were born in that state, so we're affected by this gradual movement of time.
Yeah, it's just I read things about other places, and I always imagine it's almost like the Wizard of Oz. Like I don't.
I mean, one nickname of Seattle is the Emerald City.
There you go. See, and over here we're just like we're in Kansas, still doing the same shit we've always done.
Yep, in black and white, no less. So, Matt, does this episode, because we've already debated like Locarno versus Dirty Locarno versus his Tulpa, but seriously though, does this episode make him too vile to be an interesting antagonist? Or given that it's just like a half-hour comedy show, does like the fact that he's not that deep a character really matter? And maybe all this is just coming from, and you may listen to this listener and think, oh, Bob's gone anti-woke. Bob's complaining that there's an unsympathetic male villain. No, really, I'm just more annoyed that I feel like this episode implicitly demonizes the non-aligned movement during the first Cold War. That's what I'm annoyed at. But anyway, what do you think, Matt? Is Locarno too vile to be an interesting antagonist?
He's extremely one-dimensional, in my opinion. But I don't think it matters for the purpose of the story they're trying to tell, like you said, in the 30-minute time limit. This was an hour because it was a two-parter. But
yeah, but he's like hardly in the first half.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, you kind of just. I almost feel like this is just a way to get who plays Tom Paris. His name is escaping.
Robert Duncan McNeil.
Yeah, I think it was just a way to get him on the show. They found a way.
And I think, I don't know if this is true, but I think it is like he kind of like Jonathan Frakes mostly just transitioned into directing. And so I think he's like still around on the production side.
Okay.
So he might be like an easier get than someone from one of the 90s shows who's fallen more off,
But I think a non-aligned, that would be a federation. What do you call it? A movement? A non-aligned movement would be fantastic in Star Trek. I mean, why do they all have to fit with the Federation? I guess the issue is that he did destroy a bunch of ships and kidnap Mariner.
He captured them.
He captured them. Yes.
Yeah.
He what do you call it? Elicited mutiny or whatever it's called,
yeah. Well, it's also just it does feel like the writers are maybe unconsciously looking at the rise of things like BRICS Plus and being like, oh, that's not good. I may claim to be a liberal, but I'm an American exceptionalist. And so that's kind of what I'm negatively responding to. Speaking of Locarno's constituency, when he's given his, great evil villain political speech, we have a montage, and I believe on this we saw Andorians, we saw Mariner's girlfriend's archaeology crew, We maybe saw some Bajorans. I wasn't too sure, and then we saw some Temerians. Did that seem right to you?
That's correct. Yeah, yeah. I was surprised to see the archaeology crew because I was like, oh yeah, that was from was it last season?
Was it last season or was it 2 seasons? I think it was last. No,
they all run together. Yeah,
they do run together. So Matt, is it a little sad that Captain Freeman hasn't disobeyed an admiral's orders till season 4?
I can kind of see it because usually Captain Freeman's less of a risk taker than her daughter to some degree.
That's true. That's true. And she's also, I mean, much as we love the Cerritos, it's not the flagship of the fleet. It's not the leader of the Federation war effort, and so it doesn't maybe have the room and flexibility to disobey the admirals as much as the Cisco or the Picard.
Right. Let's say Freeman is not Picard. I don't.
Yeah.
Like I feel like this is bad, but like you remember Space Quest, Bob? Space Quest 5.
I do remember Space Quest,
created by Sierra. You know.
Yeah.
Great point and click adventure game from the 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had their ship, which was like their garbage ship.
Yeah.
Okay, the Cerritos isn't at that level, but the Cerritos is more like in the middle between like, you know, your flagship, the Enterprise, and the garbage scow.
Was the Enterprise in the Space Quest series called the Goliath?
That is correct, yes.
Nice. Yeah. So, speaking of ships, Matt, Mariner pulls her getaway in a Starfleet ship. Did you recognize what class it was?
That was a steam runner. I do remember that ship. I was like, oh, I hadn't seen that forever.
Yeah, it's one of those that debuted in First Contact along with the Akira class and the Saber class and maybe one other class that I can't remember. But it's
and all of these ships were part of that Star Trek game. Fleet Command, I think is what, or no, it's not Fleet Command.
I think it was called Fleet Command. That's
something.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, back in the 90s, it was this awesome game that had, and those were like the ships that did all the work and stuff.
If I remember right, I only got to play it at your place because I bought it, but my computer was too slow to run it. If I remember right.
Yeah, Bob had like a whole shelf of computer games he couldn't play.
Tragedy. And there was no place to really resell them either.
Oh, that was the other issue.
Yeah. Oh man. So Matt, we have the Cerritos is not enough to get through Locarno's shield around his non-aligned fleet, so they're going to try and get a ship that can do it from the Orion pirates. Tendi has to agree to a barter by combat with her sister, so they both choose proxies to fight to see who gets what ship. And we see Tendi's kind of got her draft pick of people she could send in, and her draft picks are Ransom, Shax, Kayshawn, or Migliamu. If you were presented with that choice, Matt, which officer are you going with for the barter by combat?
Okay, I'm pretty sure I would go with Shax. Because he's big, he knows some Bajoran martial arts. You know, we've seen him in the holodeck practicing that shit. Ransom would be my number 2.
See, I'm leaning Kayshawn because he's looking mighty evil as he's sitting there sharpening that dagger. It's a side of Kayshawn we really haven't seen before, which I like. There's an evil to that man. I appreciate it. On the other hand, could he actually just use a weapon in the barter by combat? I'm not so sure. So if he doesn't get his dagger, maybe he's already at his disadvantage. Clearly, any of these could have worked better than Migliamu, who did lose.
Yeah, he did not do well.
So, Matt, because of this deal, Tendi is going to have to rejoin the Orion Pirates. Given the past history of Lower Decks finales, did you assume that she would be out of this deal by the end of the episode?
I mean, they know how to set up for a fun season, but like all things Star Trek, the season finale is just going to the season finale sets up these cool things, but then when we get that season premiere, we're going to see it return to the status quo. Like, do you remember when we thought Mariner was going to go Indiana Jones with her girlfriend and go find artifacts and shit?
Like half a season or something, you know?
Yeah, nothing. It was like one episode, and then she was back to what we were. And that happens for all Star Trek, though. Next Generation, Deep Space Nine. I haven't watched enough Voyager to tell you that, but the other two I do know.
Isn't the status quo change? Granted, we haven't covered it yet, but isn't the status quo change at the end of season 1 that Boimler joins the Titan?
Yes.
So, he's on the Titan for like the first episode of season 2.
And there's another season where it ends with Captain Freeman going on trial. And
although in fairness, that one that one is one you're like, it's only gonna last
an
episode, right?
Yeah.
But they could have done a lot more with Mariner as a lesbian archaeologist or Boimler serving under Riker. I do hope maybe the show is learning some lessons and Tendi will spend a few episodes being a space pirate. That could be fun. But on the other hand, yeah, no, that would be the expectation, is that she'll be back on the crew by the end of the season 5 premiere. I honestly, the way they did it early enough in this episode, I was sort of expecting, because like most of those other changes happened at the end of the finales, right?
Right.
I was expecting they would reverse it by the end of the finale, not just by the season, the next season premiere. But that actually didn't happen. Spoilers.
Well, I was thinking maybe the voice actress for Tindy just didn't want to do it anymore, and that they were replacing her with Talin. But
Interesting.
But then they ended the episode focusing on Tindy, so I'm thinking, okay, she's not gone. She'll be back.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought. I hadn't considered that. Yeah,
because Talin specifically, like at the end of the episode, doesn't answer the call from her former captain.
Yeah, no, which was a nice moment. I didn't put that in the notes, but it was a nice moment. And it also might explain, because there was the weird thing where they teased Talin joining the crew at the end of season 2, but she didn't until the start of season 4.
Right.
And so, yeah, that would maybe explain the gap. Is like, oh, okay. If I don't think the voice actress playing Tindy is actually leaving, but if she were, that would explain the gap. That's interesting.
I don't think she's leaving though. That was just a thought that popped up there.
No, it makes sense. I'm glad you brought it up. I would say one of my favorite lines this episode was Mariner berating the Romulan mutineers and being like, "You need a human for your scheming. You can't do it on your own."
Yeah, Romulans are great schemers. Why the hell do they need a human?
Yeah. I am hoping that they do a little more stuff with like independent Romulan episodes or gags in Lower Deck season 5. That could be fun. And then we are presented with what I would say is one of the most hateful things in the English language, and that is the phrase "acting Captain Bradward Boimler."
Trust me, Bob, he'll get his own show one day. It'll be called Star Trek Upper Decks.
You know, as much as I hate that idea, it would probably be better than Picard or Prodigy or Disco.
I can just imagine Star Trek Upper Decks. It's just going to be awesome. Of course, would Boimler be the captain, or is Freeman going to make it there?
Well, I don't know. There's also there's the show that was the anticipated Downton Abbey on the BBC was called Upstairs Downstairs, and so you could do the Star Trek version of that, Upper Decks, Lower Decks.
Oh yeah, you could.
So Matt, did you notice the Guitar Hero graphics as the Cerritos approached the shield that Locarno had put up?
Yeah, like my fingers started twitching. They wanted to that is like I'm telling you, that game for that year or two that it was a big thing, man, I played the hell out of that game. I could still probably just go to town on that. I don't know where to buy them though. Everybody's got these like fucking plastic guitars hanging around their houses somewhere. Nobody's using it or anything.
And if they're really losers, they have the drum set or the mic from the guitar hip hop or the hip hop.
Yeah, Bob, if they still have those in their closet, then they're a problem. Not if they actually owned it, right? Yeah. Not like they actually owned a Rock Band, but they did sell it eventually. Yes. It's okay.
Yeah. So as much as we said Locarno kind of a one-note villain, you got to give it up, man. His final words being "paywall on a bomb." Those are great final words.
And the Ferengi would totally do that.
Yep. Beautiful. So Matt, I do have to chide you, even though it's because of your enthusiasm we're covering Filmation Star Trek, and I'm very glad we're doing so. I'm just gonna say, if you had already seen Filmation Star Trek season 2, you would have recognized the Orion ship.
Oh man, sucks I didn't recognize it immediately.
Yeah, you didn't get you could have had another nerdgasm, Matt.
Well, no, Bob. The difference is now when we cover that episode in season 2, I'll say I recognize that shit from the Lower Decks season 4 finale. Yeah, then I can have my nerdgasm.
I don't know if you'll have a nerdgasm. So my final point about the episode before we go into our character of the week, another great Rutherford line, or not another great Rutherford line, but a great Rutherford line as he wistfully watches as Tendi leaves on the Orion ship. Do you think they'll give her time for sciencing?
Oh, she just wants to do sciencing, but now she's a slave.
Well, she's not a slave exactly. But
what are they going to do? What are they going to make her do, Bob? You know her sister's going to make her do like the shit work.
No, because it's because of her reputation. They're going to make her be like a pirate leader, like a war party leader.
How did I miss that? I was under the impression the Orion lady was like, I'm going to okay.
No, because Tendi's the mistress of the Winter Constellation, right? So she's a big get, and they're not going to use her for drudgery. They're going to use her as like a figurehead. All
right, Bob, here we go. This episode, I'm telling you right now, I'm going to go ahead and call it. Tendi's going to get used for drudgery.
No,
and you're going to be pissed.
Hard disagree. Hard disagree.
We're going to see Tendi doing the whole Cinderella thing,
I'll bet you $5 that's not the case in season 5 if we remember that we made this bet.
I bet you Tendi starts doing drudgery and Q shows up to do the Cinderella thing, like the.
Okay, I'll bet you $20 that doesn't happen.
And then Cisco shows up to fight Q, and he punches Q in the face again. It's gonna be great.
So, Matt, before you lose any more money, who is your character of the week on Lower Decks?
My character of the week was actually Dr. Migliamoo for fluffing his down. I thought he was going to be bigger, but he wasn't.
It was cute. It was cute. You got to give it to that.
Yeah.
And it was initially effective. It didn't work long term, but it was initially effective. I would say, I would initially say Mark Twain, but I knew if I said Mark Twain, Matt would be like, Bob, Mark Twain doesn't appear in the episode, just other characters impersonating Mark Twain. So I would then have to be like, okay, I'll give it to Talyn for it being her idea to use the Mark Twain program again.
Yeah. And I'm liking Talyn. I think she's a great addition to the cast.
Oh,
I think they need to keep her on there all the time.
Well, and I really want them to do like my fan theory that like Talyn and Boimler start dating until she breaks up with him because she realizes he just wants a Spock.
That is brilliant.
Yeah. I think that's almost as good as my boy Alan and my fan theory that Awarshika and Detmer in Discovery actually they purposely confusing everyone on the ship was whether are they best friends or are they dating, like they're just actively trying to confuse people all the time. Those are my two fan theories that I deeply cherish.
All right, Bob. So before we go into the animated series episode, I want to throw, since you're mentioning theories, I want to throw one theory out there to you about Babylon 5. I haven't watched the entirety of Babylon 5. You know this.
You have not.
Is there any way that they can link the Shadows with the Venom symbiote from Marvel?
Nothing obviously as a connection presents itself, but I don't think there's anything that would obviously exclude it either.
Yes. Okay. What if the Shadows are actually whatever that damn creature is that is,
and especially given that we know I think aren't the symbiotes called the Clet?
Some weird ass name.
So,
I don't know.
Yeah,
they have a weird
wrong
alien
to
name
say on radio.
Yeah.
Spelled like I think like K''Lit. But Jesus.
Yeah, that is actually correct. Yes, it is. That is what they're called.
Man, yeah.
I don't know how to
that's
pronounce
how
it.
you know comics are not an audio medium, but that one got through.
Yeah, and they never mention this like in any of the animated series or the show because it's not a name that anybody.
Yeah, well, in fairness, I think they came up with the name like in the aughts, or at least in the late 90s. I think it was like after the video game cartoon bonanza.
Yeah, I've played probably every Marvel video game, and I don't think they've ever referred to Venom as the actual alien creature. It's just always been the symbiote.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect that to show up in Venom 3 or Venom vs. Carnage 2. But... Well, so yeah, on the one hand, they could be manifestations of the Shadows, but also, we know from Babylon 5, right, that the Shadows have a lot of thralls. They have a lot of species that work for them or serve them, and so yeah, nothing's stopping them. I'm just going to call them the symbiotes. Nothing's stopping the symbiotes from serving them.
Nice.
All right, Matt.
Spider-Man 2099 teams up with Captain Sheridan.
Oh, man. Are you ready to tell our listeners what the plot of Filmation Star Trek Season 1, Episode 10, Mudd's Passion was?
Sure, Bob. So the third Harry Mudd episode is problematic, but it would be hysterical to remake with Ran Wilson and Strange New Worlds Chapel and Spock.
Indeed. We do have an amusing reveal early on that the woman Mudd is presenting as his woman to the rubes, to the miners, actually is a Rigelian hypnoid, which is a giant lizard that can hypnotize you, which I thought was pretty funny.
Okay, Bob, this is a deep cut here. But the woman that the Rigelian hypnoid, she has the exact same design as the women in this anti-Mormon propaganda cartoon that came out in the 70s.
Was this produced by Southern Baptist, or was it?
I don't know. It's a Filmation thing. If you look it up on YouTube, it's like the true history of Mormonism, and the animation style is very similar to the Star Trek thing, and it came out probably around the same time.
Would it be fair to call this anti-Mormon Filmation cartoon like the source text for South Park?
Probably for that particular Broadway play or whatever they put on.
It's just funny that there's such a long history of like anti-Mormonism and animation.
Well, the Mormons were pretty racist. Like, or they kind of, they still are really. But it's just Up until about the 80s, they didn't even allow black people in there. They allowed black people to attend their church, but they couldn't actually hold the priesthood.
Oh yeah. No, the Mormons are super racist, but usually when people are hysterically anti-Mormon, it's not because they're racist.
It's because they knock on our doors and like try to convert us. Nobody likes to be converted, guys.
Yeah, it's not an effective
and it's not
strategy.
just Mormons.
It's not an effective strategy. I will say that it's really sad that the bear aliens on this mining planet, the Ursinoids, as far as I can recall, haven't shown up in Lower Decks. That's a missed opportunity, I think.
Yeah, they look like those like bear creatures from the Mos Eisley Cantina.
Yeah. And then another bit of this episode I just absolutely loved is once Mudd's love potion, which he didn't expect to actually work, starts taking effect. Spock is on the bridge declaring his love for Nurse Chapel. And, the Filmation style has its virtues, but I would say expressiveness is not, of facial features of characters is not one of its virtues. And so just the flat animated faces of the bridge crew reacting to Spock's declaration of love for Chapel, pretty funny.
Yeah, they're like, we'll do 3 seconds of Uhura not moving. We'll do 3 seconds of Sulu not moving. Yeah. Here's the thing, Bob. What do you like better, though? Do you like that reaction, or do you like these things that Lower Decks has introduced this, where they literally have the characters cuss? We even had Locarno cuss in this episode, but it just does the beep thing. That's their reaction.
I like the beeping, okay. And I mean, although I will say there is something about like the kind of comedic like overreaction of the Lower Deck characters and the tendency to scream that can be a little tiresome. I don't have much time for Lower Decks haters, but I will say that they maybe have a point about that.
That I've wondered. That's a good point. And I just think that wouldn't it have been funny if like one of the crew members was like, "What the fuck" on this cartoon, and then just beeped it out.
I've never watched like the Adult Lab, C Lab 2020 or whatever, but that seems like a very kind of, in my impression of what that show is, that seems like a very kind of C Lab 2020 joke.
Yeah, Adult Swim totally has influence. I mean, Lower Decks is just a Lower Decks could go on Adult Swim if it wanted to, and it probably will at some point.
I thought it was more of, from what I'd heard, I don't watch any of this, but from what I'd heard, it was more of a Rick and Morty knockoff.
Oh, yeah. It really, that too. There's so many, like, most of the Adult Swim stuff is, like, has that same appeal. It's almost like it's for people who stay up really late and do drugs or something like that. Like, I think that's the target audience.
Matt, so, I'm old enough that even when I'm doing drugs, I'm not staying up really late.
Well, yeah, I go to bed at 8:30, Bob. So I've missed like.
Damn, son, really?
I know it's awful. I cannot like at 8:30. I'm about to fall over. I'm like, I have to go to bed. I can't handle it.
Okay, that makes me. I usually more go to bed about 10:30 or 11, so that makes me feel a little better.
Yeah. I'm getting. Yeah. As I'm getting older, life's starting to kick my ass a little bit, Bob. It's getting hard.
Yeah.
Luckily, I've got Star Trek.
You do put in a lot. You put in more hours in a work site than I do. I work a lot, but it's not all in a work site. So
Bob's like, sometimes I just go watch movies during the middle of the day.
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah.
I mean, other times I have to get up at like 4 a.m. to finish my grading, but you know,
forget that.
Like, yeah, but I also have enough flexibility that I can go see a movie in the middle of the day usually if I want to.
All right, Bob.
Did you call for falling for Scotty thanks to the love potion?
I did, Bob, but the lack of purring threw me off. She didn't purr after every time she spoke. Is that how you know she's in love? Like,
it's just a real failure of continuity, perhaps.
Like, this seems like the perfect time for her to purr, but it doesn't happen.
I mean, in actual cats, right, purring is something they do to manipulate us, right?
Oh.
Isn't that right?
I think that is correct.
Or no, that's meowing. That's meowing.
Oh, okay. I thought purring meant they were happy. I don't know. That's all I always thought.
Yeah. I don't know. Never mind. My theory doesn't work. As I pet my cat, who stares at me judgmentally.
Yeah, your theory for this 1970s cartoon about why the cat's not purring after the thing. All it was is they first forgot to tell her to do it.
My cat's not purring. In fact, she just bit my thumb.
Like, they just forgot Imress was supposed to purr after everything she says. Or maybe here's what it is, Bob. Maybe they watched it in that first episode and realized how stupid it was and told her not to do it the next time.
Yeah, let's give them a little credit. It's not a mistake. It's an
let's
artistic
go,
choice.
As we continue watching, let's see if she still does it. If she does, then we know
we'll try to remember. It's unfortunate that we're saying this right before we cover our last two Filmation Trek episodes for the year, but we'll try to remember.
Well, she hasn't spoke much since, but we'll see.
Yeah. All right. In the same spirit of Marez falling for Scotty, I was also hoping that Eric's would fall for Sulu, but alas, that does not happen. Matt, down on the planet, we have Chapel, Spock, Kirk, and Mudd, and we also have some rock dragons, but they're camouflage rock dragons. Did that camouflage work on you?
No, Bob, I really was not fooled, but these are those amazing creatures they couldn't do in live action, so...
Yeah, they're not doing camo rock dragons in 60s television Star Trek. No way.
And when they're running from the rock dragons, they don't actually put any details on the little figures. It's just little black like shadow people running across the screen. Did you notice that?
Yeah, Matt, that's because animation, like radio, is the theater of the mind.
Visual medium is a theater of the mind.
You get to fill in the details, and it's so much more satisfying that way.
Yeah. I imagine them both in Speedos running. It's pretty funny.
Oh, man. So did you like McCoy's influence under the love potion, Matt?
Yeah, his flex is like to say that he saved everyone's life at some point. He just kept on, like every character he's ever helped.
Yeah, which was great. Actually, that's something like McCoy not under the love potion should occasionally pull out and play on people. It's pretty great.
Like all the time.
Yeah. I'd also forgotten about the meme of Kirk and Spock bro hugging. But that is from this episode, I think, after they get over the love potion. So, one of the main things we can do for you in our coverage of Filmation Star Trek is to do meme watch.
Yeah, we need to get them. We need to make sure I can identify where these memes took place so that we can record their history, Bob. I agree. We need to have documented.
We are historians of meme, Matt. That's what we do.
Yes. We'll be doing it with the Bible next week.
There already are several... Nerds Read Bible podcast. I don't think we need to join that genre. Another little love potion gag I did love. So, we have the love potion working on Kirk and Spock, on McCoy and a nurse, on Scotty and Marez. But we also have Transporter Chief Kyle and some random chick just dancing to jazz in the transporter room. I thought that was pretty funny.
I wonder, that's probably the most action Kyle's gotten in a while.
Yeah. Hell, I mean, that's more action than he got on the original series.
Yeah, I mean, he's just operating the transporter here. He's got a girlfriend. He's dancing.
Yeah,
he likes jazz music apparently.
He's cutting some carpet in the transporter room.
Bob, this cartoon is just fleshing out all these characters.
Yeah, man. Well, you know what? Contrary to Locarno from the prior episode, Matt, that wood paneling, that carpet, that signals love.
I grew up in a house like that, Bob. There was a lot of love.
I know you did. That wasn't the type of love I was talking about, Matt. Moving on. So we get a great Spock line from this episode, which is, he's up and down on his emotions from the drug, from the love potion, and so he angrily yells at Kirk. That's an outstandingly stupid idea. I'm sorry, the drug.
I wonder if I could try that at work. Sorry, I'm on this medication. It just makes me say what I want.
Yeah.
Just let me be. Just let me say it. I'm good.
Yeah. Speaking about saying things in inappropriate times and places, you gotta love 70s children's animation, Matt, where like Scotty and Marez can bitch about their hangovers and bitch about waking up next to someone they don't like. Man, this is awesome. These kids are not going to know the feeling, but we adults, we know the feeling, don't we, people?
All these kids that watched the Star Trek cartoon turned out fine too, Bob. So, and they also mentioned rehab for Mudd, which, I mean, I know it's not the rehab that I'm thinking, but it's, they didn't call it like prison or
so
jail.
It's funny because you just put this in the notes and rehab. And
yeah,
I was like, was there no? But I'd forgotten the reference to sending Mudd to rehab, and so I was like, wait, did like Scotty and Marez also make like drug rehab references when they came down from their love potion high?
Oh, Scotty mentioned like Scotch specifically, which today's world would get you like a TVMA rating.
Yeah. No, Mudd goes to rehab, right? Because it's the Federation. It's Utopia. They
don't have prisons. They have
prisons
rehab.
are much more limited.
Yeah.
So Matt, were you impressed by Kirk's tumbling game as he tried to elude the camo rock dragons?
So I just wanted to know if like legit William Shatner had ever done that in the old schools, in the actual tumbling like that.
I don't think so, but I could be corrected on that.
It was a full forward like roll.
Yeah.
The only thing I remember, my favorite move that we need to do this, and I'll let you come up with it yours for next week. But my favorite move I've ever seen Captain Kirk do was in Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock, when he literally does like a Pele kick Christopher Lloyd's.
Oh, Christopher Lloyd, nice.
Yeah.
Speaking of Matt, do you know who breaks up Sam and Diane for the first time on Cheers?
It's got to be Christopher Lloyd.
It is Christopher Lloyd, which is wild.
Is it his character from Taxi?
And sadly, no. He's playing an artist that hates Sam and that Diane really loves his art. And the best one-liner is at one point he tells Diane, it's like, all right, this isn't working. Let's just go sleep together. And she's like, do you want to have sex? And he's like, no, I curl up with a different blonde woman every afternoon for a nap. And then she's like, then he's like, but I wanted to keep our relationship professional. To which she replies, that's fine. You can pay me after.
Okay, quick question. When did Cheers actually air?
I think it started in like 83, and then I think it went for 11 years. Maybe it even started at 82, but I think it went to like 11 years, so that would be like to the early 90s.
Okay, so this is definitely post-Taxi, but probably before...
It's post-Taxi.
Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
Well before Who Framed Roger Rabbit, also before Clue and Back to the Future, and even Star Trek 3.
Oh, okay, so wow, so he was just kind of pretty... Well, they knew him from Taxi, but other than that...
Yeah, it started in 82 and it ended in 93, and Christopher Lloyd is showing up in the season 2 finale, so that would put it in spring of 84.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so before Back to the Future. He's probably filming Back to the Future, but yeah.
Yeah. I think they got him just before he broke out. And weirdly enough, I haven't actually watched any of the Kelsey Grammer, Fraser Crane episodes of Cheers yet. But I think they kind of brought him on because they wanted to have, because he starts showing up in season 3, and I think they wanted to have that kind of same energy of like older, more intellectual, more effete guy that Diane is kind of torn between him and Sam.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I always wondered when, for some reason I was always under the impression Kelsey Grammer was on it from the beginning, but yeah, he wasn't. And Kirstie Alley wasn't either. She didn't come in until like, what, the 3rd season too?
Oh, no, much later. I think.
Oh, damn.
I think Diane is around, I don't know exactly when she leaves, but Diane is around for maybe like somewhere between 4 and 6 seasons. And then Kirstie Alley is her replacement.
Okay.
And then, yeah, I haven't watched any of season 3 yet, but Kelsey Grammer, I don't think is a regular in season 3. I don't think he becomes like a main cast member till like season 4 or 5.
And that's probably when they introduced like his wife and stuff, right? Lily.
I'm not sure when because like I watched the first part of the season 3 premiere, and like Fraser and Diane are dating.
Oh, okay. So it's like
yeah. Which is a little weird because at one point they talk about like him being her shrink, but at a later point it's like no, he's just another shrink at the mental institution that Diane went to after she and Sam broke up.
Oh, I mean, she could be dating her shrink. Who knows? That's not that uncommon.
It's very common
for
feel
bad shrinks. Yeah.
But it's very bad for the therapist to actually act on that. That's very bad. But no, it's perfectly normal for someone in therapy it's called transference, to start feeling extreme negative or extreme positive emotions about the therapist. That's very
because you're opening up to them about stuff you probably never talked to anybody about before.
Yeah, and you're also to some extent like you're transferring emotions from other areas into your life onto the therapist.
Well, that makes sense. So fans, we've covered a whole lot of different TV shows that you probably need to go watch. We got Twin Peaks, Cheers, Babylon 5, Star Trek Lower Decks, Star Trek the Animated Series. Don't ever complain you have nothing to watch, because there's plenty on TV.
Upstairs, downstairs. All right, Matt. So who was, to round it all back up, for Filmation Star Trek, who was your character of the week for Mutt's Passion?
I'm just going to give it to Mutt, because it was good to see him again, and it made me nostalgic for that the other point-and-click adventure game, the Star Trek one from, was it the 30th anniversary?
Oh, yeah, 25th.
25th, yeah, the 25th anniversary Star Trek game.
Don't be fronting like we're not old as hell, Matt.
Yeah, but he's in that as well, which, was always a fun little story.
Yeah, yeah. Always good to see Harry Mudd, even when he's doing hashtag problematic things. I'll give it to Eric's for this one because he's playing the lute on the bridge while he's under the love potion, which is not as funny as him macking on Sulu, but still pretty good. And he also keeps his wits about him enough to worry about what Spock and Kirk are up to down on the planet.
So, Bob, before we wrap this episode up, continuity-wise, I know that these episodes don't fit into the actual continuity, but
Yeah, they
this
do.
episode
Yeah, they
would
do.
be an interesting way to fit it
Yeah,
in.
they do. What are you talking about? They don't fit.
No, they usually only. I mean, as far as being canonical goes, only
They're
certain
canon.
episodes, right?
No, all of them.
What? You specifically told me that the only episode that actually was
No.
canonical
Like,
was that Spock
so
episode where he
when Rodden,
meets himself.
No, when Roddenberry and like his immediate successors, they didn't want to treat the show as canon, and so the only one they treated as canon was the yesteryear episode, the Spock's backstory.
Yes.
But those people don't run the thing anymore, and based on characters who've come into Lower Decks, and I think a couple of other plot points, although I can't immediately recollect what they were, but even just based on like character designs in Lower Decks, no, the whole show's canon.
Okay, good. Well, that makes us better because now this legit fits in pretty well with Star Trek: Strange New Worlds between Chapel and Spock.
Yeah, yeah.
If you treat it like that, like they had that relationship in Strange New Worlds, and now this happens,
Yeah.
it's almost like Spock still has unrequited love for Chapel.
Yeah, no, it works very well. I mean,
Brilliant.
we basically did see this in the season 2 finale of Spock declaring his love for Christine on the bridge,
Right.
with a flat reaction of the bridge crew.
It's so yeah. That's what's awesome about this. It's like, I mean, as cheesy as this cartoon could be, it actually fits pretty well in the continuity.
Yeah, no, totally. Like the Orion ship design we're gonna see. That's totally only from this. That never showed up anywhere else.
But it did show up in Lower Decks.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So it's canon
Yeah.
now.
Awesome. All right.
All
Bob.
right, Matt. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. Join us we're going to do one more episode about Filmation Star Trek to kind of keep our numbers even. So we'll cover episodes 11 and 12, and we're also going to do a recap episode of Lower Decks Season 4. We'll be back next year, of course. Hopefully it's next year. We'll be back next year, hopefully, with Lower Decks Season 5 coverage, and we will wrap up our coverage of the last 10 episodes of Filmation Star Trek. As well as ever, thanks for listening to Uncanny Treks. I am Bob in Cascadia. That's Matt in the Southland. Have a great night, everybody.
Thanks for listening.